Okay. All right. Welcome everyone to the 2020 APAC Groundbreakers virtual tour by APAC OUC. This is the biggest event of these we've ever done. I mean, we've got over 170 sessions, including presentations, workshops, hands-on labs, 120 different speakers, 11 days. It's quite an organization, and in 4 different languages even. So do remember to register as many sessions as you can. All these sessions will be available they're being recorded and will be available to replay as many times as you like for 2 weeks after when the session occurs. And on the Hay Summit website, which is where the recordings will be, there's also a comments and chat section where you can interact with the speaker as well, so you can post questions and comments directly there. So I would just like to say thank you to all the Oracle user groups and Java user groups that made this event possible, and also our sponsors, the Oracle Groundbreakers and CloudDB. So now I'd like to introduce today's session. So that's Oracle Text within Apex, how to create apps with extended search functionalities by Gabriel Guzman, who is joining us from Peru. So please feel free to write questions at any time during the session into the Q&A tab. We will, in the Zoom webinar, we will answer those at the end of the session. If there are any issues during the presentation, you can contact me through the chat on the Zoom webinar. So without any further delay, I would like to leave you with this amazing session by Gabriel. So I'll just stop sharing my screen so that you can, and over to you, Gabriel.
Thank you very much. So let me share my screen so we can start. So I guess it's working now. Thank you very much for coming today to watch this presentation. We will be talking about how to use Oracle Text within Apex applications so you can improve and you can have better search functionalities on them, and you can improve the user experience. Just to do a quick introduction about me, I have been working with Oracle products since 2013, especially with Apex. I started working in Venezuela for banks and insurance companies. And in 2017, Insun Solutions, which is a very big consulting company in the Americas, is considered the best Apex consulting company in the Americas, hired me to help with the creation of the office in Peru, in the Arequipa city. So I have been working with them since then. You can find me on Twitter and LinkedIn. You have my handles there. I try to share and retweet and post useful content from time to time. And I also have a blog that you can check where I also post some tips and comments on Oracle technologies whenever I can. So without further ado, let's move on. I will be talking about Apex and Oracle Text from a practical point of view. I want to use an example. And for that, I will present you Jane. Jane is a recent student that graduated from her college, and she wants to improve and to be on the state of the art of the technology. So she starts working in a library, and she wants to try to have a better catalog system, a better way to have all the books from the library in an organized place. So she starts to think, and she wants to use Oracle Apex for this, so she can provide an application for the users and the people that go to the library. And she starts developing her app within Oracle Apex, as I was saying. So for those of you that don't know Oracle Apex is. It is a framework provided by Oracle within the database that allows you to create rapid applications without too much coding, and it connects directly to the database, to the tables and your packages and all your objects, so you can just make some quick calls and you can have quickly reports and charts and forms information readily available for the users in a matter of seconds. So Jane thinks about how to approach this problem, this new application for the library, and she thinks of something like this. I will change to an Apex application so you can see what the classic approach will be, or the classic filtering or search functionalities will be. And it will be something like this. You will have a report with, in this case, the publications, the books. You could have an author, a title, a publication year, some categories. Even you could have the file, the publication or the book, either in PDF, Word, Excel, whatever. And you will have a filter section where you will have the different fields that you would like to filter. For example, in this case, I can look for Megan. She's an author that we have here. You can see how it is um, displayed here. You could look for books from 2007. You can see how this filters. You can have combinations, Megan and 2007. No data found, we don't have that. You can play with your filters in whatever way you want. If we go to the backend, to the way that this is being done, you can see that we have, this is the builder, the Apex builder, where you specify the queries, the fields, the reports. You can see how we have a specific item or a specific field that works for each one of the filters. We have one for the author, one for the year, for the title, for the categories, etc. When you go to the report or the query that is creating this report in the front end, you will see that we are including each one of those filters or fields in the query. We're using the author to check against the column in the table. We are also using the title, we're using the year, etc. You can see that we are making some data manipulation. We are trying to equalize both the columns that we have or the data that we have in the table with the data that the user is manipulating in the application. And this is basically how this classic approach will work. So what happens with this classic approach, or what are the issues that we can find? So here I never managed to put the same slide. Well, the issues that we can find is that query performance can be highly impacted, because once you start augmenting the table, augmenting the amount of information that you want to have available in your application, you probably will need to also increase the amount of filters. Maybe you want to, I don't know, add departments or add a country of publication. So you will start to make that query low. The one we have right now only uses 4 filters, but once you start incrementing that, you will find that if you use the string comparison with operators like the like function that we were using there, you will see that the query can take a big hit in the performance side. The filter efficiency also gets a hit, because once you start complicating the amount of filters, the information that the user can get maybe not the one they are looking for. It can get a bit complicated for them to get to the information they want to see, and that is related with the options for an engaging UI or UX. The user experience will be impacted because you will have 10, 20, 30 filters that will take all the space in your screen, no matter if you are in a mobile device or in a desktop client. And of course, the desire to work with this application will be gone because the user will be frustrated and will have a bad time and a hard time with the application. And just as those things makes the application go down, you will also have an increase in times for preventive or corrective uh, checkings on the application. If you don't only have that repo, but you have 5, 6, 10 repos, you will see that for each change or for each bug that you can have, you will have to dedicate more time to correct all that. Of course, the application gets more error prone because of all the different points of failure that you can have, and the user interaction cost goes up. If you don't know what the user interaction cost is the amount of, it's a measure of how much work the user needs to invest to go from point A to point B, from entering the application to finding a resort to finding a book that they want to check. And of course, as a programmer, as a developer, you decide to look for another job will increase because this application is very hard to maintain and you will not want to work with it. But even if you have those issues, there are some alternatives that we can check, that we can take, some new approaches that we can look at. And one of those is the use of Oracle text. If you don't know, haven't heard about it, Oracle text is an Oracle product that has been around since the 90s. If I don't remember badly, it started at 1997. And since then, it has been improved a lot in a regular basis by Oracle. And the good thing is that just as Apex is packed for free with the database, with the Oracle database, Oracle Text is also included. So you can use it with the database and with Apex without any extra licensing or fee to pay. So let me show you quickly again the Apex application, and I will show you a way to do this with Oracle Text. I will walk you. This is a very basic example. You can do any kind of things with Oracle Text. It's a very powerful tool. But for the sake of this example, I really try to use the most basic stuff so you can see all the power that these have, even with the simple examples. So the first thing that you can notice is that we lost all the filters we had. Now we only have one field to search. And you can see how we have the same report. And if I look for Megan, let's try again with her. We get the same results. We can check for 2000, I think it was 7 that we looked at before. We have the other publications. We can look by category even. Let's check for the music books. You can see how with one simple search field, we already improve the user experience because we are giving them not only something that they are already used to by using Google or Bing or any modern search engine, but we are also freeing space on the screen we are providing better ways to show and to show the information and to interact with the user from the app. What else? Well, I have here two different reports. Let's use here sample word. And we have what is called a simple search, or what I call a simple search, and a fuzzy search. The main difference here is that I will show you in the Apex backend how this is working. But the main difference here is that the simple search is doing something similar to what we saw in the first report. And we are looking for the exact word that we are putting here. So you can see how I added here an score column at the most right. And you can see how Oracle text is assigning a score for each one of the results according to the amount of times that that keyword is being found in the record. For example, you can see that the first one has the word 2 times, and all the ones that have the word 2 times have a score of 11. The other ones that only have it 1 time have a score of 5. So this doesn't only provide you a way to mix all the filters in a single one, but also provides you a way to um, discriminate and to select which one of the records should be shown first, or which one has the most importance for the user. The difference with the fuzzy search is that the fuzzy search uses a string, what is called a search for similar strings. So if you look, for example, let's see Peter, you will get not only the results that are exactly the same, but you will also get results that are similar. For example, you can see here Petra, that is a similar name to Peter, and you can see also Perry. If you go to the simple search, you will see that you only have one. But with fuzzy search, you can configure it so it can give you similar searches, just like Google does or Bing does, so you can have relevant results for your user. Let's see what we have in the backend for this. If we go to that page, you will see that, as I told you, you only have one text field item to look for the results. And you can see here that our query is even more simple than the one that we saw at the beginning, because we are using only one clause in the where conditions. We are using the item, the search item, as a parameter for the contains function. Now, from what is this contains? How does it work? Let's move here. If we go to this slide, you will see that to prepare your environment to work with Oracle text, you will need to take some considerations, some initial preparations. The first thing is that all what that is related to the Oracle text functions and packages is under the user CTX6. You don't need to use this user. You only need to run the required flow to the schema you're using in Apex to be able to use all the relevant parts of Oracle text. In this case, the header is CTX app, and you can give the run using this way, run CTX app to the name of your schema. Then you will need to create a special index for your information, for your table. And in this case, for this example, I am using a context index. That is the name of this type of index. You also have a CTSCAT index that is intended for small sets of information of data that you can have in your tables. The context index is used when you have bigger sets of data, and you can also have some files or documents, or you can even query information that is in an external path or an external URL, so you can get the information from that. And you have a third type of index that is called CTX that is used for very big sets of information, and it allows you to manage all that. But in this case, we are using context because we have some documents, some PDF files, and it's probably the most easy one to understand. So this is the one we're using. You can, if you want to have multiple columns in your search, like the case we just saw, you need to create a data store, in this case, a multi-column data store, so you can integrate all the columns that you want to include in the search in a single index. So in this case, I am just creating my data store with this name, publication data store, and I am setting the columns that I want to check or to include in the index. In this case, the author, the title, the year, the categories, and the file. Once you have your data store, you can just create your index, just as you will do with any regular index, just specifying that it is of the type CTXs, as we say before, of the type context, and with the parameters that in this case are the all the columns that you want to include. If you check the documentation for the context indexes, you will see that you have a lot of parameters that you can specify, that you can pass in this code. But for now, we are just using this to indicate which columns we will use. So that's all. With that, you will have your index working perfectly for the type of search we are doing. And if we go here, we can see again that the contains operator is the one that works with the context index. For the other two types of indexes, you will have another operations and another actions you can use. It's just a matter of checking the documentation. The documentation is pretty extensive, and you can spend a week, 2 weeks just checking all the options you have. But it's very informative, and it is very detailed. So don't worry, you will get all the proper information if you check it. So in this case, you can see that we are specifying the contains clause or operator, and we are saying that we are going to apply that search on the title column. And why is this? This is because we specified that the index will be created on that column. Even if you have 5, 10, 20 columns that you are going to use in your search, in your index, you will have to specify one, and that is the one that you will use in your queries. That's all. Even if you only have the title one in the query, it will be looking for all the other ones. So we specify the column where the index is created, and we have the parameter that we are going to look for. This can have a lot of configurations. You can configure this to be able to look for an infinite amount of works. In this case, we are working just with one, and we are using the wildcards, so we can check for similar words. But you can tune this so you can have very complex searches. And we also have a parameter that is the some kind of ID, so we can identify this index in the score card. So whatever number you have here, you may want to use it here so the query knows what score he's checking. This is important when you have multiple indexes and you want to give a specific weight to for example, you have one index in two columns, name and last name, and you have another index on addresses or phone numbers or titles, and you want to give more relevance or weight to the names or to the phones or to the titles, so you can specify different clauses here, and you will have a different score for each one. And depending on that score, you will decide which one will be more important to show to the user. If we go to the query with the fuzzy search, you will see that it is pretty much the same. We also have the contains operator. We are also selecting the title column, but we are indicating that we are going to use a fuzzy type of search. In this case, we just send the field that we are going to query, and we are adjusting here the amount of precision, the amount of similar words that we want to compare. Those numbers can be customized. Those go from 1 to 5,000, if I remember correctly, and those will tune the precision and the amount of results you will get from the query, from the search. And we are also using the scoring, the identificator, so you can make a decision on what you want to show. In this case, very simple, we are just ordering by that score in a descending way. So you can see here that it's very simple. You have a very simple query. Once you have your index created and configured, it's just a matter of fine tuning the search field and how to include it in the query. And you can see how this works. For example, with Peter, you see that we only have one result with the simple search, but with the fuzzy search, we are having similar uh, words being also displayed. And you can see how the score is showing which one is more relevant to the user. In this case, the fields record has a 99 score, not only because of the work we are seeing here, but also because of the file that we have. If you open this file, you will see that this is a simple file. It is in Spanish, but we also have the name Peter repeated six times. So this is being taken into consideration for that score that we are seeing. And also this preview window and this markup that we are seeing here was also made with Oracle Text. Oracle Text provides you the tools to be able to analyze any type of file, PDF, Word, Excel, XML, whatever. And you have the tools to display those and to filter and show whatever you want within those files. To finish here, I want to show you the interactive grid in Apex. The interactive grid is probably the most advanced kind of report that they have added in Apex in the past years. And the interesting thing about the interactive grid is that it has um, support for Oracle Text without any extra configuration. If you go to the interactive grid, you will see in the attributes section that you have in the advanced attributes, one attribute for the Oracle text index column. In this case, you will put your title column or whatever column you define as the one with the index for the context index, and you will be able to use Oracle text in this report without doing anything else. We can check for Peter again. You will see that we have that. We can look for Megan. We will get all the Megans. But what happens if we use this word? We don't have anything. And if you remember the previous example, we have a lot of records with this. What happens? That the support for Oracle text in the interactive grid requires the user to know the syntax of a search that you will have to do. In this case, they would need to use the wildcards, just as we did with the query in the previous example. For example, we could put this and 2007. Nothing will appear. But if we include an and, you will get results. So even if this is a bit more easy for the developer because you don't have to think about your query, you don't have to think about what kind of fine tuning you are doing in the search for the query. This forces the user to know the language and to know the syntax for the searches. So it may be a bit more complicated. It may be a bit less ideal for the user experience, but it is an option that you have in case you don't have a very big comprehension of the use of Oracle text. Let's go back here. So if you already have that, you can do uh, searches with Oracle text. You already improve your application, but we have some things to consider. First thing is that the context indexes doesn't have automat automatic synchronization when you have any DM operation on the information. At least not by default. You can put it on the parameters that you specify when you create the index, and then it will start syncing automatically. But by default, it will not do it. So you would need to plan or to specify some mechanisms to synchronize your information once you have modified the data in your table. If you are using another type of index, for example, the CTX-CAT one, this one does it by default, so you don't have to worry about that. But it is always something that you need to be aware of because you could see some discrepancy in the information you are showing. Also, as I say, the amount of operators and options that you have for text is very big. You have a lot of things to consider if you want to have complex searches. But the good thing is that the documentation is very informative, and it is very specific. So it's just a matter of reading and testing what you want to implement. And of course, the biggest benefit is that you are going to reduce the input output operations by a big amount of time because this type of index and this type of search doesn't need to do full table scans for the static information that you have. You don't have to do you don't need to do a full table scan for a PDF file or whatever content it has. And Oracle text is fine-tuned and is especially designed to improve those searches. If you want to have some reference for using Oracle text, I recommend to check the Oracle documentation. As I told you, it's very complete. You have a lot of things to check and to read if you want to. This can go from the very basic, like what we did here, to something super complex. But I have good faith that if you check the documentation, you will find your way there. And I can also recommend you to look for a session that was done last year in the Apex office hours called Get Fuzzy with Apex and Oracle Text. It was presented by Karsten Sarsky. You can check his Twitter profile there. And if you have heard about him, the guy is a genius, and he did a very good presentation on how to integrate Oracle Text with Apex, something similar to what we saw here. And if you need further reference, I would recommend checking that video. So that's the all that I wanted to show you. I don't know if we have some questions, some comments. We can check those now.
So thank you, Gabriel. That was very interesting. I haven't seen any questions so far, but if you do have a question, please put it into the Q&A panel.
If you have any additional question later, whenever you are trying this or you are testing this, you can reach me in Twitter or in my blog, and I will try to help you.
Hang on, that's a question. So Sandeep asks, can we use this with normal tables when you have millions of records?
Yes, sure. You can use it as long as you specify your index, as long as you create the index, depending of the type of information you have. For example, if you have documents or you want to query external information, you would need to use a context index. But if you have simple text columns, you can use a ctxcat1, and it will work with even if you have millions of records there, or if you have just a few. It's just a matter of creating the index and configuring the parameters that you will need for that.
I had one very quick question myself, which I missed a little bit in the middle. But you were talking about the different operators that you've got for searching. Obviously, you can do basic text search. Can you do cleverer things like regular expression style searching or something like that?
Yes, for sure. There is a way to use regular expressions there. And there is one of the main developers for the Oracle Text package created an special package that you can use to simplify the creation of those operators or those clauses in your query. But you can use whatever expression you want there, including regular expressions.
Nice, thank you very much. All right, we'll leave it a few more seconds to see if anyone else has any further questions. No, okay, well, it looks like there are no further questions. So thank you everyone for participating in the session today, and please remember to register for other sessions in the conference. And remember also that you can interact with the speakers on their playback session page on heysummit.com as well. So again, thank you, Gabriel, and please enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you very much. Have a good week and stay safe.
You too.